Kia ora, and welcome to Constellations and All That. I'm your host, Tracy Cartwright, and together we will be exploring the world of family constellations with facilitators and clients from around the world, looking at different perspectives and experiences in the work, having a cup of tea and just chatting with some friends around their experiences in constellations. We'd love for you to join us. I hope that you enjoy this series as much as I have loved making it. Oh, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Constellations and All That. Today, I have the beautiful Fiona Kerr here with me, not in person, wish it was, but we're both sharing a beautiful cup of cacao together. And yeah, going to just
Good
have a
old,
little...
good old cosmic mama.
Yeah, can't beat Cosmic Mama Cacao, right? Going to have a bit of a kōrero around constellations and all that, whatever shows up. It's just, yeah, keeping it casual, allowing the field to just show up, whatever's there. I don't have a script. So welcome, Fee. So good to have
you. This is my first ever podcast.
Well,
and like we just said, I'm just chatting to you and you look after me.
Exactly. And you're my first New Zealand facilitator that I'm having a conversation with. So welcome. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm honoured.
All right. So I'm just going to jump in there and ask you, tell me, how did you meet Family Constellations? What brought you along?
I had absolutely no idea what I was going to. I used to go along to a Māori spiritual healing group in Whakatane. They would meet weekly, and one week I turned up and there was Family Constellation workshop was written on the whiteboard, whatever it was, and a time and a date. And I remember saying to Kani, what's this about, to Kani? And he said, never mind, just come. So I did. And I tell you what, I think that is potentially the biggest workshop I've ever attended. The hall was, you know the building at Kōrero, Trace. It was packed with people, barely stand. It was full of people. And of course, it was Angelica Chisholm, who had come down from Auckland to facilitate a workshop. So that was my introduction, and it just was mind-blowing, It was incredible, that first introduction, seeing the profound shifts in people instantaneously was amazing.
Did you have a constellation?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I think that I repped, from memory I repped, but I didn't have a piece of work of my own work done, no. But following that, Angelica came down at least another time, if not a couple more times, to Whakatane, and I was lucky enough to be facilitated by her.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Been hooked ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be one of your favourite memories within constellations?
I have a very vivid memory of that, being facilitated by Angelica, and her husband came with her, and he on the field represented my ex-husband. And I just remember thinking, he represented Greg, but that was my first experience of someone I knew closely being represented on the field, and it was just mind-blowing that the words that he used were verbatim what my ex-husband would have said. And I remember saying something to him afterwards about it, and he was just, I was just representing, it's just the field, which of course I know all the more that is the case.
I remember that too. The first time not the first constellation that I had, but I had a really big constellation around myself and my siblings, and then invited some people to represent my mum and dad. And the man stood there with his hands doing this, which is exactly what my dad did. He always stood there with his hands, thumbs twirling.
Yeah.
And then the person who represented my mum tucked her thumbs away and stood there looking a bit nervous. And I'd never seen anyone else do that. That was kind of, for me, that was my mum's little quirky thing. I've now learned that it's actually a brain safety thing that we can automatically do. But I just remember sitting there thinking, wow, how do people do that? Like, you know,
Mm,
I was in the hot seat and it was just blowing me away that people were picking it up so easily.
And I've been on the other end of that since then. At times when I've represented and people have come to me and said the same thing, wow, you turned into my mother, or, and of course it's just that
Mm,
phenomenal field working its magic.
yeah, absolutely. I'm so grateful for this work. And now
So
you're facilitating yourself.
I am. So that my introduction, that was, you trained 15 years ago. Did you train 15 years ago,
About
Trace?
15 years ago. Yep.
Yeah. So it was just before you started training that I met Angelica. So it's been a long time that I've been in the field. I had a hiatus for a few years where I wasn't doing a lot of constellating, and then I had trained, done facilitated training, but that was all for my own benefit and never with the intention to facilitate. I came back and I got back to your workshop that you shared with two other facilitators in Auckland, and oh, so good to get back in the field. And following that, I decided that I wanted to retrain, and it was time to step up.
Yeah.
And so I did. I retrained again last year, and I really do credit the. It was like in Sydney last year at the intensive in Australia. You know that Marguerite facilitated a group constellation for all the facilitators who were wanting to step up and actually
Mm.
put their training into practice. And that constellation just felt like a graduation, felt like what I imagined a graduation would feel like, never having graduated anything before. Um, and yeah, and then that was in November, ended end of November, beginning of December, and I came home and I didn't really consciously think, right now but the new year rolled round and I just decided, if you want to facilitate, you have to facilitate. Oh, that's what I stood and said in that constellation. I said, I am a facilitator because I've done
Mm.
the training, right? I am a facilitator. I want to become an experienced facilitator. And then I just had words with myself and like, the only way to do that is to start facilitating. So I committed to myself that I would hold monthly workshops. And that's what I've been doing this year. And I've also been doing some one-on-one. And in a group, I've done one group constellation online and some one-on-ones in person and online.
Fantastic. Because that's the biggest hurdle, isn't it? When people train in this work, it's stepping out and putting it together, putting it into action. It's in any form of work that you do, right? You've got to take that actioning step. And I remember myself how nerve-wracking it was because it's just feels scary. But when you're in
Yeah,
it, you trust the field and allow it to take you, just follow it rather than try and force it and allow it to be. And
absolutely. I,
yeah, big stuff.
I still have to keep my head right out of it, even leading up to the workshop. Um, I, so to stop myself actually thinking about it and freaking out, I just think, oh, I hold the workshops in my home. I just engage my brain to think about how lovely it is when everybody's here and we all sharing beautiful kai. And it's such a lovely thing to have all these beautiful people in my home. So I'm like distracting myself and not actually thinking about the facilitation. But then when that moment comes, I just have this, it's because it's, of course, it's the field. So
Yeah.
I trust the field and I know that that's truth. And it's little to do with me, really,
Mm.
like, yeah. And I love it. It's so beautiful. And I always feel energized after a workshop. It's always uplifting. And I always feel better for having been in the field.
Yeah, me too.
Mm.
Absolutely. How do you describe it?
To
Because
people,
we all have our own different ways of describing the work. How would you describe it to someone who'd never heard of constellations before?
I would say that it's systemic or generational healing. I would say that it's kind of tricky to explain, but very easy to experience. in a group setting, we use the morphogenetic field, which is like that field of intuition, that energy field that I always say, you know how when a flock of birds fly off and they all just go into the murmuration and no one's bumping into each other, that's the morphogenetic field guiding them, and that's what we tap into. And then I say to my brother, I've been known to say to my brother, I don't know how Wi-Fi works, but it does. I can't see Wi-Fi working, but it does. Same thing.
That's
Why wouldn't
so
you believe
true. Exactly. That is so true. Yeah. I often, like when we're doing the work, I'll say to the group, this is your Wi-Fi hotspot for the field of energy that we're working with today. For the group that's here, this is the Wi-Fi hotspot. So that gives
Yeah.
people an understanding of, okay. So, because I always set up the space so that with the intention, for the best possible outcome for the group, whether that is a resolution or a clarity or just wiggling a little brick so that there's some curiosity to go forward. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. Where do you see yourself going with this?
To Lisbon next month.
Mm. FOMO, just saying, a little bit of FOMO.
I'm a full-time artist. That's how I support myself. I just want to personally, I want to gain more experience and more learning. There's always layers of my own work to continue to do. And I just want to continue to hold my monthly workshops here. It's really lovely to have, I think it's the feedback that I've got is people really are appreciating being able to come to a workshop in Opotiki.
Mm.
And yet I do want to spread my wings as well. I don't know exactly what that looks like.
That potentially could be something happening in Auckland, right?
Yes. That's right, there is. Yes. So in December, the first weekend in December, we are having a mini immersion, and I will be one of the facilitators involved there. And so I'm actually really looking forward to that. I am. Yeah, it'll be great. Yeah, be good.
It's really stepping out, isn't it?
Yeah,
On a
yeah,
level. Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. I want to come back to what you shared earlier about that constellation that you came to that I was I was running in
Mm-hmm.
Auckland with two other facilitators. So it happened that you weren't coming, and then we had a big cyclone in the
Mm-hmm.
country. And so all your plans had changed, and then you were coming. And that's a little bit like an analogy of, like it was it was a natural disaster. It was a huge natural disaster that happened in New Zealand. But there was such a silver lining out of it for the experience that we had, right? The direction that
Absolutely.
it's taken. And
Absolutely.
it's the
What a
same in constellations that we see that too, right? Yeah.
yes. It was such a blessing, Trace, because I knew that I couldn't come to the workshop because I was supposed to be paddling the Whanganui River. It was not even on my radar. But because the cyclone hit Whangarei first, I messaged you just to check in with you. And our last message was, oh, I'm sorry, I can't come. I'm going to be paddling. And of course, hello, a cyclone. You do not paddle a river in a cyclone. So, that made it possible for me to be there. And it was just incredible timing for me. Yeah, I'd had a really big time. I'd been overseas walking a Camino when my dad had died unexpectedly. So, I'd come home to a lot of processing to do. All of the stuff that had sort of pushed me outside my comfort zone to go and do the Camino, of course, was all still waiting for me when I got back. Plus, my dad had passed. So, yeah, it was wonderful timing for me to get back in the field, and it's been hugely beneficial. I've had a lot of stuff go on since that time. How long was that? 2 years ago? Yes.
Yeah.
18 months coming up. No, it's February. So it will be 2 years in February. Yeah, I'm a grandmother now. I have a moko who's 10 months old. There's been lots of changes, and 100% Family Constellations have supported me through all of those things.
Mm. You and I are both part of a community that we've created together, right? Through the this is me speaking personally for myself, for that desire to have community, have the connection and that sense of belonging
Mm-hmm.
in this work, because it does put you in a place of, where do I belong in this space? Mm.
And that couldn't have come at a better time for me personally either, because part of what I was processing was all my children, empty nest, all my children. I have 4 children that I'd brought up on my own for Greg and I have been separated for 16 years now. So our baby was 4 years old and our eldest son was 15, and I brought the kids up after that by myself. So when they left home, initially it was, oh my God, freedom. I've never known it before. I was a very young mum. I turned 19 the day after I had Braden. But then that novelty wore off, and I really felt like I had no purpose. I got very burnt out. I worked really hard after Fiona left home, and just the state of life with the pandemic for us all back then was what it was. And I was quite disillusioned. And so to find that real sense of purpose again with ANSCI, Aotearoa New Zealand
Aotearoa New Zealand Constellation
Incorporated. Thank you very much. It's just been such a beautiful addition to my life for the reasons that you've just mentioned, and really to feel that sense of purpose and to feel like you're giving something back. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, that giving back, because of the ripple effects of this work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One other, I was encouraging someone to come to the intensive who didn't know the work at all, and in my email I said, I could go on, but I'm just going to attach this photo, and it explains it all. And so the photo was of my 4 children and their twin brother and sister, younger twin brother and sister, and their mum, myself, and Greg, who's the father of the 6 children. And there we all are happily together, and we are a family together. We're a whānau, mixed up little whānau, and I totally credit Family Constellations to us all being in the space that we are together. Greg left us to be with B, and then they went on to have children. And there's lots of scenarios where it doesn't end as beautifully as it has done for us. And thank you, Family Constellations, for that.
Yeah, such a good story. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a good story. I wouldn't have it any other way. It wasn't easy and it took time. But, Greg's part of my family, and Arlo and Cecilia are my kids' brother and sister, and B's their mum, and so we all belong to the system now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful.
Mm.
And you got to you're starting to share this experience too with your daughters?
Yes, I am. That's been a real beautiful effect of working from my home, because Fiona, my youngest daughter, and her daughter were living with me, and there's no way I would have ever got Fiona to come to a workshop somewhere else if she thought she had to go to a workshop. There's just no way she would have come to that. But because she was here and she came out and joined us for lunch, and then Nanaya fell asleep, so she just got to sit in the chair with Nanaya and witness the workshop, and it's just been such a blessing. So now, since then, she said, Mum, can we do some constellations? I need to make some decisions. It's just been amazing.
Fantastic.
But Nev, my older daughter, she'd previously taken herself to workshops with other facilitators, and then she joined us for our inaugural immersion, which was so lovely. It was just gorgeous to have her there. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was so good.
She was funny. She said that we were in different groups, and someone asked her, how is it to be here with your mum? And are you in, how is it for you? She's like, oh, it's great. I'm in a workshop and I'm an adult and I'm my own person. And then the workshop finishes and I walk out and I go, where's my mum? And what are we having to eat? But no, it was wonderful. It's wonderful to have you here.
It's so good. It's so beautiful.
Nevi's come to one of my workshops at home too, and when we shared at the end of the circle, it was really beautiful. She said she was proud of me.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was blessed to have the support of my two daughters, my sister and niece, and my mum at the beginning when I was stepping out into the field,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and and because it was so unknown, and I needed a few more reps and stuff like that, so I'd run a workshop and they would come along to represent. I never constellated them. There's no space for that, but they were able to be in the field, and for them, the whole experience of representing someone else. And I remember the day witnessing my two daughters, and I knew that they were fully into their representation. And then just for a moment, I saw them drop out of it and look at each other and giggle, and then come back into it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so beautiful to witness, and yeah, and to feel that support that the family had stepped in
Yeah,
to support me as I step forward. Yeah, yeah.
beautiful.
Have you noticed anything in your relationship with your relationship to your parents or your siblings from this work?
I've just had my mum stay for 10 days, and I discovered a unconscious loyalty that I had, that I won't go into here, to do with my mum. And when I uncovered it, it just felt like the sun came out from behind the clouds, like I had a weight off my back, and I just had this whole new, I didn't know that I was carrying it, right? It was a hidden loyalty, an unconscious loyalty. But when I handed it back with love, just this whole new space has opened up for me in
Mm,
relation to myself. And yeah, going again, I won't go into the details of that, but the time with mum here was really easy and good. And I truly think that I've released a level of resentment
mm,
that I wouldn't have even known what that was about,
yeah.
but it would have been in relation to that hidden loyalty. And these dynamics, these unconscious dynamics that can be at play, are complex at times, and I wasn't aware of what that was, and yet there was that bit of friction. And
Mm.
having released that, it was, I really do think it was a different dynamic having mum here for the last few days, which is lovely for both of us.
I always found that, for me personally, because my mum lived with me for 9 years and she was very sick towards the end, but whenever I did a piece of work, because we were in the same house, I live here with my husband and son, but mum was here in another part of the house, it would be like, so even though we shared the house, we shared the kitchen, there was things, I could go for days without seeing her. It was almost like the field made it so that I still had space to process everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it did line up, I would come into it and there would be such a deeper appreciation for my mum and understanding, yeah. And often a deeper softness for myself.
That's a huge thing that I've relaxed into. I was always very hard on myself,
Mm,
and far out. What a nicer life to live when I can be, now that I've learned to be more gentle with myself,
yeah,
and I'm sure therefore more gentle with others too.
yeah. Yeah. Is there a favorite subject that you like to work with in constellations? Some facilitators will
Mm.
go for themes.
Yes.
Mm,
Saying yes to life springs to mind, which is all encompassing, really, isn't it? Do you know what, while you were thinking, what came to mind is just a sideline, that doing this work has so helped me with my art, because the clearer I can become, the more freely my artwork flows through me. So that's been such a blessing. It's had a lot of influence over how my work flows
mm,
as I've worked through my own layers of process. So why do I say that? I don't know. I guess just to reinforce that you don't need to be a facilitator of this work, you know, like just coming along to workshops, just doing your own mahi frees you up to say yes to life and just to live a life of more ease and flow and just having more access to joy. Life is big. Man, life
It's
is
so
big.
big.
I've just been
Yeah.
to a tangi yesterday. You know, if we can just release the entanglements and hidden loyalties as they arise, as we're able to, it just really does free us up to be more present to all that life is, which is sometimes a lot, but that is life.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, what is a tangi?
A funeral.
Okay, just sharing because this will be going out to the world.
Worldwide audience, yes. A tangi is a funeral. Yeah.
And when you say saying yes to life, can you give us a little bit more about that?
Saying yes to life. It's an engagement in life. It's a stepping into life. For life to give us all that it can, we have to engage with it, right? So it's that. It's a stepping into life, saying yes to life. I think that saying yes to life involves an acceptance of all that has been already.
Yep.
This was a big lesson for me after Dad died, because there was stuff that I wondered, how did that happen in relation to mine and my brother and sister's relationship to our dad. We loved our dad and our dad loved us. And yet, because of some other relationships in Dad's life, we were a bit inhibited as to how much we could have of our dad. And I got home and he'd passed. And during that grieving process, I went through all the stages that you go through. Anger. How did that happen? How did we all let that happen? And what I came to was, we can't change the past. So there's that acceptance is really freeing. We can't change the past. And in that instance, for me, it was Dad's free now, and therefore so are we from the situations that were before that. So saying yes to life going forward, there's an acceptance of all that has been to bring us here, and to move on with that acceptance is actually very freeing.
Because we unconsciously have these layers, right, that we pick up over the years, and then there's the ancestral stuff that's already there that comes through that we're taking from our parents that they might have taken from theirs and they have no idea of it, and so on and so on. So there's these layers, and when we peel them back, we can say yes to life as it is and all
Yes.
that comes with it.
Yes.
But yeah, that's been one of the biggest, most powerful things for me too, probably. And having a life force connection that feels safe. That would be the word. That feels safe to tap into, because some of us have experienced a lot that doesn't feel safe. So when we feel to tap into that life, or that yes to life, we can actually have a no, because it's not safe. We've experienced in the past isn't safe, but so we're moving beyond that. And that's the beautiful thing about constellations, right? It gives us a safe space to acknowledge what's been. It gives us the resources to move forward. Yeah. Yeah, the
And I think
energy of the life force.
yes, and when I'll speak for myself, when I've seen things laid out on the field, the story is all dropped right on the field, and so you just have so much more understanding for why things may have been the way they were, and having the constellation lens to look through at life situations, it does often, not always, it can be the heat of the moment that you're not looking through that lens, but oftentimes it can give more compassion and understanding when you can look at perhaps a behavior or a circumstance, what stands behind that, you know, and maybe you don't need to know what does, but just having an understanding that there's something that stands behind that for this to be occurring now.
Yeah. That was the biggest thing for me, my first ever constellation. And my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And my inner child rose up and was like, oh, am I ever going to know if he loved me? Like, my father was in our life. Mum and dad stayed together, but he wasn't present in my life, even though he was part of the family system. We all lived together. And so, yeah, I felt like time was ticking. And so I literally went from the hospital to the wānanga in Wellington and got to sit in the hot seat. And then I remember seeing my constellation in front of me, evolving in front of me, you know, because you get to sit on the outside and see the work and these light bulbs of, oh, it wasn't even about me. The disconnection between us, father and daughter, didn't start with me because there was a part of me that felt like it was my fault.
Yeah.
So when I was able to do that, I was able to open my heart in a different way to my father, and really grateful because I got 2 more years with him before he passed, and we got to have a different relationship. Yeah. And seeing and leaving it with him and mum.
Yes.
What showed up in the field that day was between him and mum. And that was so empowering for me. Yeah. It was another way of saying yes to life, leaving it with. If someone had never done a constellation, and I know I kind of asked that before, would you suggest that they come and sit in the hot seat, or how else can they have a constellation? How else can they benefit from a constellation? Sorry.
I've been strongly encouraging anyone who's even slightly interested in the work to come along and witness, because you benefit so much from being in the circle while the work's happening. Even, I mean, representing is another level again of benefit, but even holding the space and just observing. And I always start my workshops with a guided meditation and then a small exercise, which it's either done in pairs or threes, so everyone gets a chance to have an experience, but there's not the pressure of it, you being in the hot seat, which can be a bit intimidating for people when they don't know the work. Yeah, definitely. Just witnessing from the circle is hugely beneficial. And you can they definitely observing a constellation is, you just witness the power of the work, you know. Transformations happen before your eyes. And having said that, you know, some constellations are just incredibly complete and powerful changes in that moment, but sometimes they're not that. Sometimes I've been in the hot seat and I've kind of like, I trust the facilitator and I trust the field, but I'm not really even sure what happened there. I don't really understand that exactly. But then over time, I can reflect back and go, oh, well, I don't have that response anymore, or that dynamic's shifted.
Yeah.
So there's definitely no set way that the work unfolds.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember having one in Bali. I received a constellation with a beautiful facilitator over there, and there'd be another little thing drop in, and I go, oh, that's another layer of that particular constellation. And I would know, I just felt really connected to that. And then I've done that with other constellations, you know, I can feel the layers. And some of them I felt immediately, and others have been this layer dropping in, dropping in, dropping in. Yeah. Yeah. So you never know, eh? It could happen in 3 minutes, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, maybe. Who knows? Like that one definitely was one that was layering for me over a longer period of time.
And I guess the other thing I'd say, Trace, is I'd really encourage people to have the courage to come to an intensive, because I've been to a few Australasian intensives now, and the last one I went to, last year, I had such a sense of the deepest sense of belonging that I've had, because initially I did have to summon my courage to go. I didn't really know if I belonged there. I wasn't a facilitator. But it's not about that at all. You do not have to be a facilitator to come to an intensive. You don't even have had to have experienced the work before. So I would really encourage people to go along if they're able to one of the intensives. It's such a beautiful community to belong to, you know. It's and to if you're able over time to come back repeatedly, it's just such a heartwarming experience, hugely beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. We my experience in this as well, and you probably, I'm not speaking for you, but my experience, particularly in Australia, when we've been to Australia, has been that from the time I say yes, I'm going, there's a constellation starting, and then the process of getting there and then being in it, you're just transformed on
Yes.
levels that you can't even articulate. Yeah. Everything becomes a constellation. Everything becomes part of your constellation. The people you're sitting with, the conversations you have, the experiences, and yeah, I've had a few of those. We've done a few of those, right? You and I have been to a few intensives now, haven't we?
Mm, mm.
And we're going to another one again in October.
Yeah.
And we're having a mini immersion, as you said, in December, and we have another intensive, the second Aotearoa New Zealand Constellation intensive here but it's going to be in Rotorua this time,
In April.
April next year. Yeah,
Mm.
2nd to the 7th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah,
exciting.
it's
Yeah.
so exciting. We did touch on it at the beginning there, but I fly out on Monday and going to be very proudly, as best as I can, be flying our Anski flag at the Lisbon intensive.
Fantastic.
So that's exciting. But you talk about it being a constellation right from the time you decide to go. I've been in a bit of overwhelm the last 2 days and had the thought of why did I think this was a good idea?
Listening to your soul, do you think your soul might be calling you to this?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just my head getting in the way of, I never like packing and all of that. Some people love that sort of thing, but I don't. But as soon as I get to the airport, as soon as I'm checked in, I can go, right.
Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
on the road in the
Yeah,
air.
yeah. How exciting. So you're going to be representing Anski, New Zealand, and yeah, and I'd love to have you back on the show after all of this so that you can share what's come up for you,
Mm,
any insights, anything. Have another cacao and another conversation. We might even be in the same space next time.
that'd be lovely, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't that be nice?
It would be
Yeah,
lovely.
amazing. All right, my friend, I think we'll leave it there for our conversation for this program. So thank you for being my first New Zealand guest for Constellations and All of That.
My
Yeah,
pleasure, Tracy Cartwright. You have the highest integrity of any person I know and one of the biggest hearts, and it's my absolute pleasure to be on here, and I am very blessed to have you in my life. Thank you.
thank you.
You're a role
Thank
model to me.
you. Oh, love you, my friend.
You too.
Thank you.